Okay. McCullen and Coakley happened in Boston, Massachusetts, I think. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure Massachusetts. Happened in Massachusetts. A grandmotherly lady, they drew a big circle near the abortion center on the sidewalk, and they said, you're not allowed in here, even though there was the Shank case, Shank versus pro-choice. They still created this buffer zone, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they said she was a violent terrorist, and she was the cutest little old grandma that you ever met in your life. And so 9-0 they won the case, but it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag how they won this. So I want to read to you a few things about this, because it's going to be important for you and how you proceed in what you're doing. So this sidewalk counseling, the reason she was allowed to do this was because they differentiated between her and a protester. And that's something that's going to be important for you all. They said, sidewalk counseling is rooted in a deeply held American tradition of leafleting. They're basically saying that America was founded on leafleting. And as the Chief Justice explained it, this placed sidewalk counseling squarely in the tradition of what he called, quote, the most important and characteristic writing of the American Revolution, unquote. So, that's the good thing. The American tradition is not rooted in and does not support any activity anywhere in any way you want it. That's the thing you have to understand. It doesn't support just anything. If people can argue that your actions are impeding free access, or that other people's rights, or the public security, or if you can be labeled a protester as opposed to a leafleter, then they can bring an injunction against you. So, the Supreme Court reaffirmed past decisions declaring that leafleting and one-on-one communications, that's the important part, one-on-one communications, lie at the heart of the First Amendment, quote, lie at the heart of the First Amendment, unquote, and that public sidewalks are historically associated with discussions of important topics by the citizenry, that we as citizens have a right to have dialogue on the sidewalks. Making such communication difficult, the court ruled, quote, imposes an especially significant First Amendment burden, unquote. Here the court concluded that Massachusetts violated the Constitution when ruling that McCullen, quote, by the extreme steps of closing a substantial portion of the traditional public forum to all speakers, unquote. So the court stated that this is important. McCullen and the other petitioners consider it essential to maintain, and this is what they put in the Supreme Court document, McCullen and the other petitioners consider it essential to maintain a caring demeanor, a calm tone of voice, and a direct eye contact during these exchanges. Such interactions, petitioners believe, are much more effective means of dissuading women from having abortions than confrontational methods such as shouting or brandishing signs, which in petitioners' view tends only to antagonize their intended audience. In unrefuted testimony, petitioners say they have collectively persuaded hundreds of women to forego abortions. The court also said sidewalk counselors are not protesters. They seek not merely to express their opinion opposing abortion, but to inform women of various alternatives and to provide help in persuading them. Sidewalk counselors believe that they can accomplish this objective only through personal, caring, consensual conversation. This is what the Supreme Court is protecting: personal, caring, consensual conversation. So, that's what we want to bring about as much as possible. And this is the heart of what we designed in the very beginning, was this personal, prayerful presence. And that's what I see that you do here. Raising your voice is not shouting. Shouting is shouting. If you're across a parking lot and you have to raise your voice in order to be heard, then you're not shouting. As long as your tone of voice stays out of a shouting mode. So you can still say that this is what your intent is. If you're protesting, then you are trying to address a large audience. You're trying to bring your message to a large audience, and for that, you can do it anywhere. So they'll say, go do it down the street. But if you are sidewalk counseling, which this is the first time in history that a court, and the Supreme Court of the United States is the one that did it, acknowledged sidewalk counseling as a legal term. So if you're sidewalk counseling, then you should have a right to do that. So that's one thing that we really want to keep in mind is this whole idea of the prayerful presence, the one-on-one, the desire to have a one-on-one conversation. And I would just say that in closing, it's really frightening to think that we've come to, I'm here to tell you the history of pro-life, and that's kind of frightening. That we actually have a history, that we've been around doing this long enough to have a history. I deeply believe that what brought us into the Catholic Church, the understanding of pro-life, and then the secondary thing of the contraception. I deeply believe that contraception is the heart of the battle that we are fighting, and that the true root of abortion comes straight from contraception, and that it's spread its errors throughout our culture. Even our most recent no-fault divorce and contraception are your original destruction of marriage. Because the truth of the matter is, if marriage is not meant to be permanent, and it is not designed to provide us with the next generation of children, then same-sex marriage ought to be able to be legal. Because if those things don't matter, then really basically you're being unfair to same-sex people. The reason that we are against same-sex is same-sex marriage is the same reason that we're against contraception and we're against no-fault divorce, is that marriage is permanent. And of course a no-fault divorce means that if there's abuse that somebody can get divorced, but to just say this is just a contract and I can break it whenever I want to, then why can't two people of the same sex make a contract if it has nothing to do with children? So these are some things, that looking at what we're fighting today, that I think we really need to focus on, and it's why the longer I have been Catholic, the more I cling to it, and the more I cling to my understanding of some of the beautiful things that we have been taught through our Catholicism. But also the other thing is that the more that we work as a Catholic organization, the more that I find that we have wonderfully loving interchanges with non-Catholics. That we do have loving and wonderful relationships with them, that the pro-life movement has really brought us around to see that we need each other and that we love each other. And I think that that's incredibly important. There's a lot of different versions of sidewalk counseling that have come out, but the only one that Catholics United for Life really supports is one that is simply prayerful, present, and personal. Something that would exclude any kind of judgmental, angry conversation. That would exclude. It doesn't necessarily exclude signs, because sometimes the situation you just have to use signs because you can't communicate with them any other way. But it prefers always the personal one-on-one communication. Today I brought some of these newsletters, and that has a story of Shank in it, the one that I told you, and it talks to you about Cullen and McCoakley. So that would be very interesting. This is our Sidewalk Counseling pamphlet, personal, prayerful, present. And that kind of just goes over these general things, which you seem to, this seems to be the heart of what you do. I think if you really care, it is going to be the heart of what you do. The other thing is Planned Parenthood. We've seen a lot of Planned Parenthood lately, right? Planned Parenthood, this was the first book that ever came out against Planned Parenthood. And that was one of the other things that we did that was really bad. Was we started investigating Planned Parenthood, and everybody thought they were wonderful at the time. In the 70s, Planned Parenthood was wonderful. Nobody thought a bad thing about them. And all of a sudden, because of what they were doing, we said this can't be good. And so we started investigating. We hired a girl from a student at Berkeley, because back then all those things were microfilm and you had to be at a big university basically to get your hands on them. And then this book was written originally about, this is the original book written about that. And I brought copies. I don't know if I have enough for everybody. Maybe if you have husband and wife, maybe just take one for a household. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is this prayer, and this is a wonderful thing because it is very ecumenical. It's just got Jesus with the lamb on the front. But it's, so many people have commented that this is so powerful. And it's Father Amorth, the exorcist from Rome, the chief exorcist from Rome. It's his prayer for deliverance and his prayer for healing. And it's really been wonderful. A lot, especially of post-abortive women, have really enjoyed this. So anything you see over here, you're welcome to. I'm really excited to be with you because, like I said, all of my good friends, all of the good things that have happened to me and have come through pro-life work, and meeting people like yourselves who stand out there. Sean was talking about some incident where it was so cold out here that his phone was freezing and there were people standing out here. That's incredible, and that really shows a huge amount of love in you all's heart, and it's very encouraging to me to see that enthusiasm still going, because I would have to say I'm sure there's times I have been kind of discouraged about it, and that's an amazing thing to see how active and how really dedicated you all are. So, is there any questions or? Yes, Father.
I was wondering, you also lead the Light Your Torch, the youth group, and then I think of your own, was it 8 kids?
I do. I have 8 children.
Awesome. What tactic do you use to influence the younger generation? Children, and then that Light Your Torch group, how does that work? What are some of
We really try to influence them with joy. We have a conference that's exciting and fun. We bring one religious for every 10 youth. So we'll have 30 or 40 priests and sisters there. And we don't do it like other conferences where you have speakers who come in and leave. The speakers come in and eat with them and play. We've got Father John Paul from EWTN playing volleyball with them. We've got